Hey, everybody, welcome to Ronline Report. You know this man in front of me. He was away for a little while. He is back. He is the owner of REDCON1. He is the author of a new book called REDCON Rising. Please welcome in his first exclusive interview since his release, Aaron Singerman. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Ron. It's a pleasure to be on here with you on Ronline and representing. I love that you're representing REDCON and Muscular Development. Two of the best brands in the world of bodybuilding, I have to say, together there.
Of course. Yeah. And I appreciate you doing this and giving me the first interview. That's a really cool thing for you to do. So you actually got out right before the holidays, right before Hanukkah, before Christmas, perfect timing. I was actually bumming because I was out in West Palm, and I trained at your gym for almost an entire week, but you weren't there. You were away. This was April. I think you went away right before that, which is March.
April. I went away January, the beginning of January that year, last year, in 2022.
Okay. Yeah. Because that was my first experience at the Boca Gym.
What did you think?
I love it. It's not as big, but you know what? I actually like it better than the Nashville one personally.
What about it is better? I'm curious, in your opinion.
The lighting.
The lighting is very, very anabolic lighting for sure.
There's a couple spots where anybody can take the perfect selfie, but no, the equipment, the Panada stuff. I know you have great equipment. The other one, you have more equipment because the other one's so much bigger. But man, I love the equipment there. I could be there for hours and hours all day, and I got to train.
It's like a playground. It's like, I tell people, it's like Disney World for bodybuilders. I mean, it's a very special place. And it's one of a lot of things that I missed. But one of the things I definitely missed while being in prison, although they have a weight pile in Pensacola, which is very lucky to be in federal prison and have any weights at all. Yeah. So it was really cool that they had a weight pile. And it was definitely like it helped me keep up my strength and size, and also give me something, a mental kind of break from the reality of being in prison. But every day I'd work out there. I'd think about, man, what would I be doing back at the Boca Gym and REDCON Gym in Boca? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to take this sort of chronologically because that's the only way my brain can process things. Sure. So this whole thing started back in what year did this case originate with Blackstone? Was it 2015, 2016?
So 2014. In 2014, there was the designer steroid control. December of 2014, there was something called the designer steroid control bill that had been tried. It was tried to be passed in 2010, and then again in 2012, and then finally passed in 2014. And we were sure that it was going to not make it again, just because it has really, not that anybody was going to vote against it, but it just hadn't made it in the past because there wasn't enough. It wasn't important enough to any lawmakers. Yeah. And I remember in 2012, Ron. What's his name? Ron, the lawyer, the steroid lawyer. I forget his name.
Collins.
Rick Collins. I was saying Ron. Rick Collins, of course. Rick said that this law was going to pass, and it was as certain as death and taxes. And he was wrong in 2012, and so we kind of figured 2014 it wasn't going to pass again, but it did. President Obama signed it right before the Christmas break, and if it wouldn't have been signed, it would have had to start all over again like it had in the past. And it got signed into law, and basically the gist of the law was there's 25 compounds that were pro-hormones or pro-hormone-like substances that were legal before, that were now on the list and were illegal, and that they also had this kind of catch-all in it saying that any substance that is similar in structure is also could be added at any time, basically, and is also kind of included in this catch-all. And so the gist of the law, from my understanding at the time and my understanding to this day, is to take all these products that would normally take a long time to schedule and give the ability to quickly schedule, Attorney General to quickly schedule within a 30-day period new substances. So you had this 25 on the list, but you also had now the government had the ability to, instead of going through this whole 2-year scheduling process where they could say, oh, that's a pro-hormone-like structure, we're gonna add it to the list, and it'd be a temporary addition. They have 2 years to prove that it needs to be permanently added to the list. Since that happened, to this day, none have ever been added. They've never attempted to add it. The law is kind of like, it wasn't used for anybody against anybody except for me and PJ.
Yeah, so I want to get into that because you made a very interesting post yesterday on your Instagram, Aaron Singerman, and it was showing a few pictures of you and PJ in the heyday of Blackstone's success. And at the time you commented that you thought people would be inspired. Here's a couple meatheads came up from, you had been homeless, you had been an addict. a success story. You thought people would be inspired, but instead they saw it as flaunting this wealth, and it became a target. And that's when they came after you. Whereas I don't see a lot of other people, to your knowledge, did anyone else other than you and PJ get jail time for selling pro hormones?
No, other than James Bacuzzi, who is a sales guy for us, who was in prison with me. He was literally my roommate practically down the hall from me. And then a bunch of other employees or businesses that were related to us that we had ownership in. Those were also got indicted, and a lot of them didn't serve any jail time. Like Robert DiMaggio, who owns Iron Mag Labs, he was the one who invented Super DMZ, and he brought it to market, introduced us to it, and he didn't get any jail time. He was initially cooperating, one of the cooperators. So they gave him, because he came in first, they gave him no jail time whatsoever. Yeah. So there was a bunch of people associated with this particular incident, but no, all the hundreds and hundreds of other companies that were 1,000 companies that sold pro hormones did not get involved. I'm happy they didn't. I mean, I'm very happy there's a lot of good people in our industry who did that same exact thing and didn't get in trouble. And that's a good thing. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but the post, Ron, that you bring up is in retrospect, the reason why I would say that we got in trouble and other people didn't is because we were the biggest target. And, you can be the most successful and still not be the biggest target, but we were probably both. We were the most successful financially, but we also showed it off a lot. And so the picture that I posted was a photo shoot that Per Banal did with me and PJ in front of some of our cars in front of the house. Yeah. And that was actually used. That photo shoot was used at the Olympia. There was an All-Max on one side, and the other side was us, and we're probably about 50 feet tall. Wow. With suits standing like this, And the truth of the matter, Ron, is that I felt like that it was super cool. Like, I thought when we posted this stuff that it's inspirational to young men who like us didn't think we were going to necessarily be anything major in life. I mean, my dream come true was working for Dave Palumbo at RX Muscle, covering the world of bodybuilding. That was literally my dream. So if you would have asked me when I was doing drugs and whatever, what could you imagine being your best case scenario in life? It would have been traveling the world. Maybe not necessarily with Dave Palumbo, but working for somebody like, a Muscular development and covering bodybuilding. What's the better than for a bodybuilding fan? What's better than that? Yeah. No, I wouldn't have been rich doing it, but I didn't have enough money to pay the bills. Right. I didn't aspire to own Lamborghinis. I didn't aspire to be, have a private jet or any of that shit. I just didn't even think it was a possibility. So to start achieving a level of success that I never even dreamed of, I thought, and PJ thought too, to some degree or another, that this is something that inspires people and that success would breed more success, showing that we were successful, and showing it, unfortunately, that this is the mistake, I think, showing it with objects and material goods, by showing it that people would think it was awesome like we did. So I am a huge, even on my Instagram, I'm a compersion proponent. Compersion means being happy for other people's success. Oh. It's like the exact opposite of jealousy or envy. It's compersion. So if I see Ron Harris, who, if you come out with a new book and it goes to #1 bestseller, I'm not saying, well, I want my book to do better. I'm doing a book. Why is my book not #1? I'm saying that's fucking awesome that Ron Harris wrote a book and he's #1. How cool is that? And that your book will inspire me to try harder on my book, right? Yeah. So that's how I look at things, but that is not the normal way that people look at things. Yeah. And certainly not in our industry, in bodybuilding and fitness. There's a lot of envy and jealousy, and there's a lot of insecurity. And I wish that people could use some of this thing that makes our thing so special, the dedication, the discipline that's required to be a bodybuilder, to stay on a diet, the level of obsessiveness, and generate success with that. That's what I have done. My success is directly correlated to those characteristics that make bodybuilders a good bodybuilder. That's the hard work and the work ethic and the never quit and suffering. These are the things that require to be successful. So I made the mistake of thinking that other people were like me. And then I made the mistake of posting literally stuff, thinking that was a good thing to do. And I think that I could have done it. I could have done the exact same thing in a much more positive way without the stuff. And so I see a lot of people doing that to this day, on social media in our industry and outside our industry. And when that picture popped up from 7 years ago of the Olympia, or what was it, of the Parabanal photo shoot, I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to post this. I've never posted anything with Blackstone on it. Not since I left Blackstone 7 years ago. I've never posted anything. I don't really talk about PJ. I don't talk about this historically in my past. But as soon as once I decided we're releasing this book and I started writing the book, and I realized it was going to be about my entire life. PJ Blackstone was 5 years of my life. PJ was more than that. PJ was 15 years of my life, whatever, however many years. But that business was a important part of my life, and there's no way to not talk about it. So, and I also think that, like, at where I'm at in life now, I don't think there's anything that I can be embarrassed or reticent to speak about if I'm going to do a book. If I'm going to put myself out there like this. So you'll see, I've talked a lot about going to prison since I've come out, and I posted about it, and I've discussed it. I've talked to friends about it. I've been very public about it, because initially the thought when I was in there was like, I'm embarrassed, right? It's not something I'm proud of. Right. Is this something I want to hide? And I made the real decision, obviously, to go the whole other direction and speak about it and be completely open, like I have been in my past. And I hope that people like the things that I'm saying, and I hope that they get to know me as a person better. Because I think the people out there that me and you talked about this on the phone just recently, because I often wonder, why do people in the industry that I love and the sport that I love dislike me when they don't even know me? And I don't understand it, but I think maybe if I was more open as a person, and they viewed me more as the bodybuilding meathead that I've always been, and less like this asshole rich guy who's got it all, then maybe people would understand me and what my motivation is better, and maybe I'd be able to help people more readily.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's fairly obvious, Aaron. It's the success. It's the fact that you did so well with REDCON, and nice house, nice cars. People are jealous. That's all it is. But one thing I want to ask about, there was a long gestation period. This case was going on for years and years. Yeah. I personally thought maybe he's going to get a fine, or I never in my wildest dreams thought they're going to put Aaron Singerman in prison. And I mean, you're not like a threat to, you're not like a murderer. You're not going to kill him. Right? If they want to hit this guy where they hurt, why don't they just give him a huge fine? That'll be the end of it. At what point did you start to think, I might actually have to do some prison time for this?
I'll tell you what, Ron, so Blackstone was raided in 2017. In March of 2017 was raided. And I went and saw a lawyer, and the lawyers were like, yeah, you got nothing to worry about, basically. There's a lot more to this story, but basically they're like, you're not a target, whatever. And then when I actually got indicted in 2019, I was really surprised. I hadn't talked to my criminal lawyers in over a year. I thought it was over. And when I got indicted, I had other lawyers, and I spent a lot of money, many millions of dollars on lawyers and legal teams. And, I had everything from the great Alan Dershowitz working for me to multiple other really high profile lawyers. I wanted, and every one of them was basically like, you didn't do anything, you're going to win. Like, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. One version of that, or you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I had one lawyer who was very well known, who talked to my wife and me on the phone and was like, straight up, was like, listen, even if you go to trial and you lose, nobody has ever been to prison for anything like this before. So you're still not going to go to prison, even if we go to trial and lose. And me and Daryl were convinced. So from 2017, when I was initially scared because Blackstone was raided, all the way up till 2021, 2021, so I went to, when I started crashing boats and crashing cars and falling apart, that's when I really realized I was going to go to prison. I changed my plea from not guilty to guilty. And I came to the realization, obviously, when you do that, you're going to prison. And so, and then talking to my lawyer, talking to the prosecutor, and finding out that they're shooting for 96 months, like that was their goal, 96 months in prison. Wow. That was when I really fell apart, man, when I really could no longer pretend that I was going to be okay and that everything was going to be fine and that, none of this was going to make a difference. Now, I'd be totally lying to you, Ron, if I was to say that I wasn't really worried throughout that whole time. Sure. So from 17 to 19, I was pretty paranoid, but from 19 to the time I went to prison, I was some level of a mess. And then it just got worse and worse. And that's why the drinking, when I started drinking, I mean, I'm not a drinker, bodybuilding and drinking don't go together at all. And I will never say I'm any kind of saint. And I've had drug issues in the past, but I've never been an out of control type of guy. I've always thought of myself. I think everybody here at the office and my family would tell you that I'm very stable. I'm a stable person. But I got less and less stable as I got more and more worried and anxious and stressed. And because I was leaving my family. I mean, I have 3 little boys that are the most important thing in the world to me. And I try to teach them what it is to be a good man and a good person. And this doesn't fit with the things that I taught them. It doesn't gel. You can't say tell the truth no matter what. And, always try your hardest, do the right thing, treat people the way you want to be treated, and then go to prison. It just doesn't work, Yeah.
Yeah. So that last month, it was December of 2021. The boat crash was first, correct?
Yeah.
And then the car was like 2 weeks later.
About 2 weeks later, maybe a little longer than that. The boat thing was pretty. So for one thing that I should clear up, and I'd like to clear this up by suing a bunch of people, but I'll clear it up on the show with you instead.
Okay.
There was no children on my boat. All these people saying, "Oh, Aaron had children on the boat." It's insane. The boat thing happened at 3 a.m.
Wow.
Why would I put my children on the boat at 3 a.m? Look, I mean, I may have been drinking too much and I may have crashed the boat, but I'm not putting my little kids, my babies on the boat at 3 a.m. So what happened, Ron, was there's Lake Boca. My house is on the Intercoastal and it's close to Lake Boca. Lake Boca is it's not really a lake. It's like a huge intercoastal. I mean, it looks like a lake, but it's right there, the inlet to the ocean.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the big canal heading the other direction. I brought two of my buddies. One of them is a former SEAL who works, an agency guy, ground branch guy who's works for the CIA. These are 2 really reliable dudes. I figured going out in the middle, it was at midnight, probably a bad idea. We were drinking, but I figured we weren't going far and it would be okay. Right. Yeah. And my buddy was on the boat with me asking to drop him off at his house down the Intercoastal. And I didn't realize the Deerfield on the Intercoastal going slowly is 2 hours away. So it took me 2 hours to drop him off. And when me and the other guy, the SEAL, are headed back the other direction, we've been going for 3 hours and we drank way too much.
Wow, okay.
So the bottle basically was gone by the time we were heading back. Now, this is where that gets, I guess, interesting. This is the rub, right? Is that I don't know anything about boats. I mean, I could drive a boat. I had a boat. I could drive it at day and even at night. The problem is I didn't think about the fact that every boater out there is going to be like, duh. But for me, I didn't think about the tides. So the bridges that I had went under, no problem, heading that way. 3 hours later, the tide had risen. And so when I went under the El Camino bridge, which is close to my house, the top of my boat, like the visor with all of the, all the radar shit and everything, ran into the bridge. Oof. And so the whole top hit. And then my head hit the center console.
That's right.
And I was bleeding a lot. And my SEAL buddy, who you'd think would know to take the boat out of, because it was very slow, out of neutral and take it out of drive and put it into neutral, instead was dealing with the amount of blood that was coming out of my head. And the boat ended up veering off to the side. So if the bridge is here, it was going like this. And when it hit, it started veering off. And then my boat ran into another dock over here, and another boat. And so the bridge operator saw this and called the police, and that's the end of the story, basically. Gotcha. Okay. So, this is no children on the boat. It was absolutely irresponsible. It was a very stupid decision. But when people were like, "Oh, he put all these lives at risk," and he just consciously put, look, I put my life at risk, and I put my buddy's life at risk, which was bad enough. But it wasn't like I was put my children on the boat and started driving willy-nilly into people. It was some misconception.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the hour. I think the report said the hour. I think it said it was like 3 something a.m. I'm like, I don't think he had his kids on the boat at 3.
No, I hate that was said, because the most, like I said, I mean, my kids, and that's the number one priority. If I put my kids on the boat at 3 a.m. to drink and drive on the boat, man, you may as well execute me. I shouldn't be out of. I mean, that is a bad person. Risking their children like that. Anyway, 100%. So regardless, we went way far afield, but I think it was important because it hurt my feelings to see so many people saying that. It's one thing to say I was irresponsible and I was an asshole and I shouldn't have done that. And I don't think people realized the pressure that I was under, because I was acting pretty normal. but internally I wasn't normal at all. I was a mess.
Yeah.
And I woke up in the morning, Ron, with this pressure on my chest, this extreme anxiety that I felt every morning when I woke up. And the reason why I would drink wasn't to party or to relax or let loose or something like that. It was because if I drank a little vodka, a little glass of vodka, then the pressure and the anxiety would relieve a little, not a lot, but it would just, I wouldn't be stepping on my chest. And then an hour or two later it would come back and I would drink another little glass of vodka. And it was a very stupid thing to do. And I should have handled it a better way or talked to somebody or seek help from someone, but I didn't. This is the way I did it. And it was my medicine, and it caused a lot of problems.
Yeah. I mean, because at that point you knew you were just awaiting sentencing at that point, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I knew.
So you knew you were going away.
Yeah.
You knew you were going to be locked up and away from your family, away from your business, everybody you knew for an indeterminate amount of time. I mean,
I think the hardest thing, Ron, is the uncertainty. And I think that's the thing that kills guys. And all these guys that I hung out with a lot of really good dudes in prison. And a lot of them, this is a common thing where, they change their plea to guilty and then they wait, or they lose at trial and then they wait. They don't get sentenced immediately. And that's when bad stuff happens. I mean, in retrospect, there's a lot of things I would change about the legal system. There's a lot of things I could talk about with that. But when you have people hang out for weeks or months in between that period of time, it's almost like asking for trouble, because a lot of guys feel the same way that I did. Not everybody makes the big mistakes I did, but a lot of people feel incredible pressure and anxiety because you don't know what the sentencing is what's going to happen. So my judge could have given me anything from probation up to 96 months.
Wow.
And so you don't know, you can't plan. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what to tell your kids or your family or friends. You just know something bad's going to happen and you don't know what it is and how long it's going to be. And that sucks.
I mean, how do like when someone's diagnosed with a terminal illness, they say, get your affairs in order, and people will do that. A similar process must have happened where, you're going to be away from your family, your business. You need to make sure everyone's going to be okay while you're gone. You don't know how long you're going to be gone. So what was that process like, where you were trying to make sure the business was going to be okay? And more importantly, I'm sure for you, make sure your family is going to be okay.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Ron, we do, like in business, you would call it like a succession planning. And then for family, obviously family planning, for me, I have, a lot of different stuff going on. I have to make sure that my wife has power of attorney and all those type of things, take care of my family, make sure, people have access to the funds they need, make sure that the people who are managing my funds know what needs to be done or not done with that money. There's a lot that goes into it. And unfortunately for me, I crashed the car and made a mistake again before I had an opportunity to really do that. So I left a few weeks earlier, 3 weeks earlier than I thought we were going to leave. So I really left a lot of stuff towards the end, and then a lot of it didn't get done and had to be done without me. And so with the business, the real planning, in my heart of hearts, I was still hoping some miracle would happen until it was too late, pretty much. And with the car thing, I wasn't drinking or anything. I took Ambien. I don't even remember any part of this incident. We were at a hotel. I drove the car at night and crashed it. Wow. And very, very surreal, because even to this day, I have no recollection of any of it. I don't remember any part of that other than I'd never taken Ambien before. And I started taking it because I couldn't sleep at night due to all the anxiety. Yeah. And so my first time taking it, being a big, tough guy, how we are in bodybuilding, instead of taking one, I took two. Which was, it says in the bottle, take one. I took two because I figured, I'm
a big dude.
If one's good, two will be better, right? Yeah. And I went downstairs, and that's all I remember. I went out of the hotel room downstairs to get food, and I was hungry, and that was it.
Wow.
But as a result of that, even though I had the psychiatrist and everything come to the courtroom and say, like, hey, this was an unintended incident, based on this medication that he hadn't taken, it didn't matter. At that point, I don't blame the judge. The judge said, this guy may be a risk to others and he needs to go. What's the difference between now and 3 weeks? Yeah. And I don't blame him. What are you going to, if I was him, I'd probably do the same thing. I would do the same thing, because you don't want that guy being out.
I remember exactly when that happened. I was actually thinking that judge is smart, because it seemed like you were on the spiral where you might have crashed again, and that might've been it for you.
Who knows, man? There was a lot of incidences towards that last part were very scary, were life threatening. I don't know if you remember the post where me and Rob Bailey almost drowned in Lake Boca. I have a great one on Instagram telling that whole story. We almost died next to the boat. We went out in the boat at night again in Lake Boca, not drinking or anything, but still almost died. I mean, there's just a lot of bad juju, a lot of bad energy during that period of time. I've always felt like I'm a pretty fortunate guy in a lot of ways. I wouldn't say lucky, because I create a lot of my own luck, but I've always thought I have good energy. You know, I think I put out a pretty good energy. I get back good energy, and man, none of that was happening that last few months. None of it. Everything was bad. You know, nothing good happened. And so in essence, that judge did me a real favor, even though he put me through hell for those few weeks of being in county jail before I went to the FDC Miami, the Federal Detention Center. And that was even worse because this is during COVID. So we had you were locked down, 23 hours a day at best in your cell by yourself or with another person you don't know, that entire time for over 100 days. But, ultimately, the crazy thing is that I felt a little better when I was in jail. And then I felt a lot better once I got sentenced and I was in, as terrible as they call it, the building is, FDC Miami. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. And you're there with everybody, with murderers, rapists, gang members. And it's the staff there are mean and they hate you and you're subhuman and you're in a little tiny, 12 by 8 cell with one other guy and the shitter's right by your head and they put the food through the little hole and you're stuck in there other than an hour a day to get out at best. The first 10 days, I didn't even get out to shower. I didn't brush my teeth or shower for 10 days because there was gang violence in Beaumont. So they shut down all the prisons nationwide, all the federal prisons because of the gang violence, MS-13 and stuff like that. So even though all that was happening, I actually felt way better. The pressure in my chest went away. I felt more relaxed. I felt like, I had, even though this bad part was really only beginning, the really acutely bad part, I felt so relieved that at least I had some certainty. I knew 54 months. I knew where I was at. I knew where I was going to go. I was going to Pensacola prison camp. It was going to take a while to get there. It was going to be a really shitty journey, but I was going to be there. And then I'm going to be done and I'll leave. And I had like a game plan. And so that level of uncertainty receding, becoming some sort of certainty, I went from feeling really, really anxious, not able to sleep, to sleeping better than I had in years in prison.
Wow. Yeah. That's what I want to ask you. We've all seen all kinds of movies, TV shows. We think we know what prison's like, but I have a strong suspicion that unless you're actually in prison, incarcerated, you really don't know what it's like. What were some things that nothing could have prepared you for? Some realities or some conditions?
So you definitely don't know what prison's like unless you've been to the prison. That's for sure. You definitely don't. Because so the one thing that I remember at FDC Miami, first off, when I was in county jail, because I was in county jail for about 20 days or so before I made it and I went from county jail to county jail to county jail. And when I finally got to the building, everybody was telling me in county jail, wait till you get to the building. It's like a 5-star resort compared to here. You're going to love it. The food's better. Everything's nicer. The guard's nicer. The mattresses are good. These guys will always talk about when you get there, it's going to be quieter because the county jails are crazy. People are drunk there and on crystal meth and acting lunatic like crazy. Lots of fights. There's a lot of violence, gang stuff. So I kept hearing this. So I was looking forward. I was so excited to get from the county jail to the building, FDC Miami. And then when I got to the building, I realized, holy shit, they were so wrong. This is even worse. It was terrible. Nothing was good about it. But when I got into that first cell on the 11th floor, G unit is where I was at, on the 11th floor, the north side of the building. They put me in my little cell and the door locked. And I remember being in that cell that first night with the door locked, where it slams shut and then it's locked, thinking, man, there is nothing I can do to get out of here. Like there is literally nothing. There's nothing I could say to get out of these doors, to get out of here. None of the success I have achieved makes any difference. None of the good things or the bad things I've done makes any difference. There's nothing to do. I can't buy my way out of here. I'm stuck. And it was a humbling experience. A lot of being in prison is very humbling, where, you can't help but come out of it very different. I mean, if you're hopefully, people go into this experience trying to figure out, and this doesn't happen a lot. So I'm just saying, hopefully looking at this in the most positive potential light, is that there's a lot to learn in prison. you can come out of prison a much better person if you so choose. If you look for the opportunity in prison, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot for people to take and become better as a result of. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't look at it like that at all. Most people look at it as woe is me, or they look at it as I didn't do anything, or I didn't deserve this. And there are people in there that didn't do anything and that don't deserve this, but it's still, ultimately, it's still where you're at. And you have to embrace the fact and accept the fact of where you are. And that first night behind those doors, I had to accept it. And I had to say to myself, you know what, man, this is where I'm at. This is the journey that I'm on. Yeah, it could be a shitty journey, but maybe there's something I can glean out of this experience that will make me a better husband, father, leader, businessman, son. And that's what I went and focused on my 11 months in prison, was how do I use this as a positive, as opposed to feeling so sorry for myself and thinking about how it isn't fair. Thinking about, like we talked about, all these other people stole pro hormones and they're not in prison, Right. All these people, I mean, how many people do we know that sold steroids? Everybody, all these people. I didn't think about those type of things. I would, if I did, if it kind of leaked into my mind about how this isn't fair or whatever, I would tell myself, man up, bro, man up. That this is not the thing you should be thinking. You should be thinking about how lucky you are that you have a family to go back to. How lucky you are that your business is operating. How lucky you are that you have family that's sending you books every day. I mean, there's a lot to be thankful for if you choose to look at it that way. And I think that's how life is in general.
Yeah, I want to talk about the book, but first, one last question about the prison experience, which they can read about in REDCON Rising. Yes. But were you ever, you're a big dude, you're like 6'7" or 6'12".
I'm at 6'7".
Were you afraid for your personal safety at any point or at all points during that experience?
You know what's funny, Ron, is no, not because I was safe at all points by any means, but that's another thing that if you're focusing on that, or your danger, or who you're around, or if these guys are good guys or bad guys, or what their intentions are, you have to be situationally aware for sure. But I didn't think about that too much. I only almost got into one fight the entire time, and that was related to the phone, which anybody who has been to prison will know that the phone is a sensitive thing, especially in like a county jail. And what happened was there was a group of dudes who were using the phone, and you only get to use the phone for 7 minutes. So there would be a line of people using the phone, and then after an hour, you can use the phone again. So I went there the first day I was in this particular county jail, which is called Gun Club. Was the name of it. It's in Palm Beach. No, that's the name that people call it. So we were in line for the phone, and I was standing in line, and it was all black dudes. I'm the only white guy. I was in all the county jails. I was almost always the only white guy until I got to in FTC, pretty much one of the only white guys. And then and once I got to Pensacola, then there's all kinds of different people. Yeah. But for whatever reason in Miami, it was very rare. And then in the Palm Beach, there's nobody but me. And so these dudes were like, didn't want nothing to do with the big white boy, basically. I was odd man out for sure, which was okay. I understood, and it was no big deal. But when it came to the phone, everybody was using the phone, and they'd be like, him. And everybody used the phone. And then the same guy who initially was on the phone, the main dude, took the phone back and started calling again. Because it had been an hour, and so I made a point to say, hey man, I'm just trying to call my wife. It'll just be 7 minutes. I need to get on the phone. And that whole first day I waited, and I didn't only get an hour, 2 hours out at that point, at that place. Yeah. So everybody got to use the phone twice except for me. And so the next day when I came out, I had decided whatever happens. And as soon as the first guy got off the phone, I took the phone from that guy when he was done, and I just dialed my wife, and they all crowded around me like they're going to do something. And I was like, look, guys, 7 minutes, you can have the phone. I only need to call one person, my wife. And they I guess, thought better of it and left me alone. And after that, I got put into the rotation where it was like him, the big white guy, and then him. And that was the closest I ever came to it. I saw a lot of fights, and I saw a lot of violence, but I was never the target of it. And in fact, a lot of there was one gentleman, Eric Hart loves to tell this story because he ran into this gentleman's sister by chance in Boca because he was wearing Redcon, and the woman came up to him and said, "Do you know Aaron Singerman?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know him very well." Yeah. And he's like, so she said, he protected my brother in prison. Oh, wow. So usually the problem was that people pick on the weakest person. So this one gentleman, Adam, Was a tiny little guy, older dude, like not older, but like 50s, probably 5'4", 120 pounds. And people were taking his food and picking on him. And I basically helped him out and told the people, leave him alone, like get your own food. And not that I had to fight or do anything, but I basically told Adam, look, I got your back. And he said, you'll protect me? And I said, yeah. And the first thing is funny story. The first thing he did was he looked over to the guy, one of the guys, and he said, fuck you. and I Adam, what are you doing, bro? Like, no, like, I'm going to make sure they don't take your food. I'm not going to like fight for you.
Right.
I had to calm old Adam down. But yeah, so no, Ron, I never really felt worried about my safety. At times I was prepared to do what I needed to do. I'm not a violent person by nature. I'm not some kind of badass in real life. So I wasn't a badass in there, but I didn't let anybody take advantage of me. And I think I made it very clear that nobody was going to walk all over me. And so people pick up that vibe, and they kind of move on.
So the book REDCON Rising, you took full advantage of having the time in there to do something very productive with it. A lot of people, so many people in this world say, I'm going to write a book, and they never write the damn book.
Right.
When did you decide I'm going to use this time and put my life story together here?
So actually, Ron, I started the book before I went in. So what happened was I was doing the whole, the Instagram selfie stories. It was on my Instagram doing stories. When I was walking, I got this like crazy obsession with outdoor walking during COVID, where I decided fortunately for me, I owned the gym. So I had the opportunity to go to the gym during COVID, and I would just lock the door and whatever, keep the lights off so people didn't get too upset. But I thought that one of the things I thought was like being outdoors during COVID, for whatever reason, I was like, that's a healthy thing to do. Get in the sun, get cardio, walk. And so I started doing it during COVID, and I got real crazy about it, where I eventually was doing hundreds of miles a week of walking, and, wore a weighted vest. And I just kept, that's that obsessive personality where I went and did 30 minutes a day, and it became 45, and then an hour, and then 2 hours, and 3 hours, and wearing the vest. And, it definitely got to an extreme. But while I was walking out of boredom or looking for something to do, I would tell some of my life story on my Instagram story. And the reason for it was because I said something at some point on Instagram about doing heroin, and people were like blown away. We were like, in my comments, in my DMs, it was like flooded with people being like, no way, you did heroin? And I realized that a lot of the people that are following me, or that know me, period, from REDCON or even from Blackstone, they don't know that Aaron. That they think of me, especially people that just know me from the REDCON era. They think of me as the CEO, founder of REDCON1, this big sports supplement company. They don't think of me as all my crazy past, because they don't know it. And I don't really have an opportunity to tell it to people. And so when I did, while I was walking, people lost their mind, and people were shocked. And I got an interesting reaction I wasn't expecting. I got a lot of people that were inspired by that in a whole different way than posting things you have or whatever objects. I had people that say, I'm so impressed where you're at, because you were at such a low point in your life. And it gives me hope that I could do that too. I am suffering from this, that, or the other thing, maybe not injecting heroin, but something in their life that seems like an obstacle that they can't get around. Maybe I can do it. And one of the ones that touched me the most was parents, my and your age parents, whose kids were having the same problems, currently having the same problems that I had. And they said, man, I had no hope for my son because he's injecting OxyContin. I had no hope for him. But hearing your story makes me believe that my son has a future. And I had enough of those. I was like, damn, I felt like maybe I owe it to people to tell the whole story, because I've lived such an unusual life, and there's been so many ups and downs, and I've learned so much along the way. Maybe I can create a self-help book, self-help business book / memoir that people will find entertaining and educational along the way, gain some value from, and maybe get inspired from. Maybe that's a possibility, a thing that I could do. And once I started writing it myself, I started realizing, man, this has a lot of potential, not for the bodybuilding industry. I mean, it can be, but for the world at large, where people maybe will get hope from the book. And also it's entertaining. My story is crazy. I've been around murders and overdoses and drug deals and huge success and tons of money and celebrities. And I have a lot of stuff that we don't talk about, or that I haven't had an opportunity to talk about, that I do in the book. And I hope that it provides a cheat sheet to people who want business success as well. So there's these multiple facets of the book. And so I started it, and I was about 6 or 7 months into the writing of the book. And I always thought that I was going to go to a trial and I was going to be vindicated. I would win or something, and then it would be over. And that would be the end of the book.
Yep.
Well, it took a really strong right turn or left turn during the writing of the book. And I went to prison, and going to prison absolutely afforded me to make the book not only different and give the book a whole nother twist and turn to my life, another down and hopefully another big up right now, that I could write about, and I had the time to do it. And so while I was very regimented in prison, I created a real routine, just like I do in the real world. I did find myself having more time. I hired a professional editor. And so we would go back and forth. I would write, send to him. He would edit, send back to me. We would go over corrections. And it gave me like working out, it gave me a mental break from the monotony of being in prison and all the stress that I was under there, because it wasn't easy there either, of course. And I loved doing it. And I was able to complete almost the entire book while I was there, because I didn't want to finish it in prison. I wanted the book to be finished. And I believe right now the end of the book will be at the Olympia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Returning to the Olympia. I mean, that was one of the reasons I thought, what a great way to end the book. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to come back to the Olympia and have a booth at the Olympia. I thought this is a great ending, because I've been looking for, what is the ending of the book? Where does it end? That's a tough thing when a memoir for a person who's 42 years old, there's a lot left. I like to think that I'm still in the beginning of big things. That this is just the first stage in multiple stages of a cool life. And so, yeah, that's the genesis of the book, Ron. And I really, really believe after the editing process and rereading it and reading it to people, one of the coolest things I got to do, Ron, this is a great story, and it is in the book, is during the writing of the book, whenever I would get a finished chapter back from the editor, Andy, I'd get it out, I print it out, and then I would read it to my cellmates. And so it started out at the first chapter where I read it, and it was the introduction of the first chapter. And I read it to the 3 guys that were in the room with me. And then they told people how good it was. And so other people came up and were like, hey, we want to hear the book. And so I ended up reading it for about 5 or 6 other guys. And then after that, it just kept growing and growing until I was reading it for 30 guys that would all pile into my room to hear the newest chapter. It was like a weekly, or, at the end, it took a little longer. So every other week entertainment. And these guys would give me feedback on the chapter, and everybody was so excited about it. The whole prison started talking about it, Aaron's book. And it became this really unique, amazing thing where I would do a reading of my own book for multiple groups of people who would want to hear this. And it gave me a lot of confidence in the book. So initially the book, I thought to myself, wouldn't this be awesome if people want to buy it at all? If it sells, because I'm not doing it for the money, obviously, Ron. The book is not going to alter my life financially. Even if it's a humongous success, it could be something really cool, but it's not going to be something that changes the where I'm going or what I'm doing in life. In fact, my loose plan is to donate the proceeds, although we have to figure out what that's going to look like. But by the end of the process of doing this, I believe that the book has the potential to be a New York Times #1 bestseller in nonfiction. I think it could be a movie or docuseries or something on Netflix. I think it could be all those things.
Netflix. Go for Netflix.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at with the book. I'm very, very excited.
So is this coming out in print, digitally, both? And when can we see this?
So it will be audiobook. It will be digitally. It will be a hardcover book. April 25th of this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So the release, you'll be seeing, I'll be doing a lot of media. I'm hoping to be on, I got a lot of dates already set for your big podcast and stuff. So I'm hoping you see this on Joe Rogan and everywhere around that period of time. Fair enough. That's my hope anyway.
Now we come to the part of the interview I was getting to. So yes. you got out with a little under a year served, I believe, on a 48-month sentence, was it?
52.
So immediately everyone's speculating, rumor mill, videos, everyone's coming up with their theories. How did Aaron get out? Videos are coming out. he did this, he's an informant, he must have done, there must be some nefarious way that he got out so early. So let's set the record straight.
So Ron, obviously there's not only certain, I can only say some about this, right? I can't go into tremendous detail because the things that, first off, I had a legal team that was fantastic. And I had a legal team that was working on getting me released from the day that I went in. Yeah. So this is not an ordinary thing that happens all the time, which is true. And I can understand why a lot of people trying to figure out, well, what happened, all this stuff. I've seen some of these videos where I'm like, oh my God. And I wish I could come out and give the exact explanation or everything. But what I will say is that the reasons are directly related to health. So I don't want to go over in detail, but I can tell you guys, for people out there watching, that there's a lot of laws that were changed by President Trump initially, called the First Step Act. That gives people credit. So you're able to get a year off your sentence due to the First Step Act. There's something called the CARES Act, which is also very important, that people like Michael Cohen and other people got out initially. Paul, I forget his last name now, one of the other Trump appointees, who got out because of the CARES Act. Lots of people have. But the CARES Act allows people to get out early based on health conditions, because the world at large is not worried about COVID anymore, but the prison system, the BOP, is still very worried about COVID. So because of health conditions, I was able to, and the great lawyers and the changes in the laws, I was able to get out early. Now, the rumor mill that you hear, I think that people will have to use their own, over time, they're going to have to use their own judgment, because obviously everything comes out in the wash. So there's no secrets. I don't know. People know that bodybuilding industry is very small. And so if any of their suspicions are proven correct, it's going to be very widely known. It's not going to be something that nobody really knows. So I think that people should just keep an eye on, be logical and keep an eye on the news and make your own judgment call. That's the thing I would say, is that, I hope that people do that. And I hope that people give people a benefit of the doubt. And even if they don't, at least be logical and try to figure it out based on the world at large.
Gotcha. So, okay, that's fair enough. Now, the company, I feel like, correct me, this was just a general sense I was getting, is in that year or close to a year that you weren't running the company, I feel like the company was going off in more of a, can I say, mainstream direction. It was getting away from the bodybuilding, the hardcore sensibilities. Some of the hardcore athletes, a lot of the hardcore athletes were dropped. I saw people from other sports being picked up. It just seemed to me like REDCON was getting away from its roots, from where it really came from.
Yeah.
You get that sense, and what direction is it going to be going in from here moving forward?
Yeah. So one thing, Ron, is that in prison, you're not allowed to conduct business. Now, I was able to get a lot of reporting about what was going on, but I missed quite a bit. And then while in there, you don't want to get caught up giving directions on what to do with business, because you can get in trouble for that, which could lead you to being there longer, reducing privileges, losing your ability to call home. It's not a good place to do a lot of business. So a lot of things I found out, third hand, way after the fact. One would be like the Blessing situation, where there was a lot of drama apparently in the world of bodybuilding related to this, because Blessing had won 2 shows and then we dropped them right after. That obviously wouldn't have happened if I was there. I didn't know anything about it. I was surprised after the fact, and I immediately got him to get picked back up, because I said, "What are we doing? Go get him." And we got him back, and then I was still in when he ended up quitting. So he ended up getting his green card and completed what was really important to him, more than even the money, was becoming a citizen here, or being able to live here. And so once he had that, he was basically like, I would imagine, screw these guys, because they got rid of him, or we got rid of him. Yeah. When he after he won. So the loyalty, I guess, in his mind was gone. Which I can't really blame him for that. He's been very. When I see Blessing, he's a gentleman. He always says wonderful. He's gives me credit for a lot of helping him. He's a really good, I consider him a friend. So I'm not blaming him for any of this. Right. But I think people here didn't even know that he won shows. They didn't keep up. They weren't covering the content that we could have been doing with him to begin with. Mm-hmm. So we really weren't getting a lot out of having Blessing in their perspective, because we're not doing much with him. And it doesn't, here he won 2 shows back to back. It should be exciting, a celebration. We're like, nobody even knows. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's a big deal. To Blessing, I'm sure it was an even bigger deal. And he wasn't covered. So that's a microcosm of other issues that were going on. The business as a whole, REDCON1, is flat. for the year. So financially, we did just as good this year as last year, which may sound good to people, but to me, we've never had a year that we didn't grow substantially since we started. I mean, we say fastest growing sports company in sports supplement history. Right. Well, that has been true until now. I mean, this last year we're flat. Now, I can tell you that I think that's a pretty good outcome considering. Yeah. You know, we've grown tremendously in a lot of channels, and then we shrunk up in other channels. So we ended up flat. We're about even. And I have to say that based on, you know, being here in the office and being here now for a month, I feel like we're pretty lucky to be flat. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, yes, we are going to go back to our roots, and that's not just our roots for bodybuilding. We lost a lot of the military. We lost a lot of the first responders, police. We lost a lot of, I mean, I have a lot of my buddies who are former operators, Delta or SEAL guys, who are like, yeah, man, we don't even see, nobody's drinking anymore. Nobody's posting it anymore. Guys aren't talking about it anymore because we've been focused on being everything to everybody, right? And one of the things we say with REDCON1 is that REDCON1, what does the word mean? It's a military term that means the highest state of military readiness or preparedness, right? So one of the things in our presentations, when I do it from Vitamin Shop or Walmart or whoever, when I do a presentation, I say, who doesn't want to be at the highest state of readiness? That applies to a soccer mom, a Navy SEAL, or a professional bodybuilder, right? Yeah. So, because a soccer mom wants to be at the highest state of readiness. Why would you not? Who would say, I don't want to be prepared? Nobody, right? Yeah. Well, I think that we took it a little too literally here when I was gone and started thinking we're going to market to the soccer mom. We have to market to the guy who has never worked out before. We need to market to the school teacher who needs to lose those extra 20 pounds from COVID, right? And stop thinking about who are our core audience, who are the things that we stand for as a business, and started thinking, well, how do we get the rest of these people to be interested? I never, ever wanted to be everything to everybody. I wanted to make supplements for a specific group of people for basically that believe in the same things that we believe in, that are patriotic Americans, that are hardworking, blue collar work ethics, that treat people the way they want to be treated, and that support the military and the police and other pro-America type stuff. So if you don't like that, you don't believe in that, that's okay. Like, I don't hold that against them. But I'm not going to make products for you, and I'm not going to market to you. And if you somehow get into the brand, that's fantastic. But if not, that's okay too. And so one of the things that you might say is that professional bodybuilding to a soccer mom could be objectionable. So I don't like that look, okay. Now, do we as a company remove it because she doesn't like it? Or do we say, well, I'm sorry you don't like it. See you later. So my attitude has always been, see you later, And so I think we started saying, well, maybe we should shift over a little bit more into the center with our marketing and our branding so that we could appeal to everybody. And that's not how we got where we are. That's not how we got to become, the fastest growing sports supplement brand in history. That's not how we created this business. And so, that happens a lot though, Ron. If you remember, and I hate to use this as an example because it's kind of derogatory, but do you remember BSN when Scott and Chris owned it and it was really like blowing up, and Ronnie and all that, right? Yeah. And then BSN got bought by Olympia. It's a great company. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but they changed the fabric of the brand. They got rid of Ronnie. They got rid of the red containers. They basically moved into like more in the middle. Well, they said, I want to be, I want this company to get to the next level. Well, by getting to the next level, it hurt the brand, and BSN stopped being the cool brand altogether. And it still sells a lot of supplements. Don't get me wrong. They still bring in a lot of revenue. I'm sure they bring in over 100 million a year in revenue. So it's not like they're a little company, but they lost that magic feeling. Right. Yeah. And that's not what I want to do. I do not want to be a big corporate company that is trying to appeal to the masses. That's not what I want to do. And that's not what we're going to do. And so we're having a kind of fundamental shift back towards the right where we were before. Yeah.
So the Olympia, a lot of people were not expecting you to be at the Olympia.
Yeah. Me either, Ron.
Aaron's going to, me and Steve were like, Steve's like, I don't think he'll go. I said, he might go. We were kind of like debating it. And then we saw you there. It was great. But a lot of people expect you to stay low. He's not going to want people to talk to him, to see him. And there you are, the booth right there up near the stage. Great booth. Kai was there. You were there. What made you decide to go to the Olympia when I'm sure a lot of people seriously did not expect you to show up?
Yeah, I think there's a few things, Ron. One is the fact that I love bodybuilding. I wanted to be at the Olympia. I wanted to see the show. We have a lot of new young competitors I'm excited about. I thought the show was up in the air about who was going to win. Obviously, that was the case. Yeah. So there was one element of just being a fan. Another element was I felt like if I wanted to kind of restart the brand, so to say, like I felt like it's something that we had to do to show people we're here. We're still part of all this. A lot of booths were not there. A lot of companies that I would consider competitors were not there. So I felt like it was important to jump back in. I contacted Dan Solomon, weeks before to do the booth because we had sponsored the show and we were going to have the logo on the stage and everything, but we weren't going to have any real presence there. And I said, I just have to do it. I wanted to be there. And I thought, what a great way to hear from the fans directly. I always use the shows as a kind of barometer of where we are and what we're doing. Social media, you have access and to fans and fans have access to you. But it's very different for me to be at a show, to see people wearing the REDCON shirts or how many, to see how many people want to come take a picture with me or what they have to say to me, what the excitement around the brand, excitement around which athletes. It's a good barometer of just where we're at as a company, where I'm at, where the industry is at and where athletes are at. So I felt like I had to be there. I felt like it was the right decision. I certainly wasn't going to, like I said, I already made a determination internally. I'm not going to hide out. I'm not going to be like, there's nothing to hide out for. There's nothing. So I figured I'm going to go right there, the belly of the beast and enjoy myself. And I really did. And I have to tell you, Ron, I had thousands of people come to me. I didn't have one negative interaction. Not one person said one comment that wasn't positive or constructive. So I did get a lot of comments about REDCON that was very constructive and things that people wanted to see either come back or go away or be different. And it was great. It was great to see. A lot of people got to try the canned energy drink and I got to see the reaction from people.
Good stuff.
It's really good, right?
Yeah, it was good.
It's funny because that's such a big play for us. And that happened while I was gone. So I taste tested the canned energy drink. Hold on, Ron. Let me show you. I got it right here. So I should have already had product placement. I got my refrigerator behind me.
REDCON Energy.
So this was just an idea. Like we were going to do it, and I knew I wanted to make this, and we taste tested it. But then when I got out, they're actually here and they're real. And I'm not an energy drink guy really normally, and so when I drank this for the first time, I was like, "Holy shit, these are like really good." And so we ended up buying, when I got home, I bought every energy drink we could buy from Ghost to my buddy at Rise to all the big boys, Rain. And I never tried any of this stuff before. I've only tried Red Bull and vodka and I hate Red Bull. So I get rid of it. We just do the vodkas. Not anymore. No crashing boats.
Gotcha.
But this has been the biggest, most exciting thing because everybody agrees who's tried this, that this is among the best or the best tasting one. And it's not just me saying it. Lots and lots of people have tried it. And so this is our big bet for 2023, which is going to take us, to all new heights and reclaim the title of fastest growing sports supplement company in history.
Right on. Yeah. Congratulations. So last question, Aaron, how have you personally and professionally been sort of making up for lost time? Because you did lose almost a year, basically.
Yeah, man. Ron, it feels like a dream, like a bad dream or some kind of like alternate reality at this point. It's really weird that I was in prison for 11 months. It's weird to talk about it. Every once in a while it'll kind of hit me when I'm sitting doing whatever. And I don't know if there's a way to really make up for the time. Like with my boys, I'm very, 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 very fortunate that my boys were not damaged from this. I was really worried. The scariest part and the worst part of the entire process of this was having to tell my 3 sons that I was going to prison. It was the worst part of any of it. I told them before I went for that court appearance with the car thing, because I knew there was a chance they could remand my bail. And having to sit down with my 3 boys and tell them, it gave me nightmares thinking about it. I tried to put it out of my head. So, because I was so worried about how they were going to react and what it was going to do to them, because I'm a very involved father, and on all aspects. So to have to do that and have to tell them was extremely hard for me, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And then I've been so delighted to see that Darielle and I have done such a good job with these guys that while they missed me terribly, and you know, I got a million hugs when they were able to come visit the few times that they were able to come. They're really okay, which is unusual in the sense that there's lots and lots and lots of dads that I met and talked to who had kids that were having real problems.
Sure.
I had one good friend of mine who was a doctor. His son committed suicide when he went to prison. His 18-year-old killed himself.
Oh, that's awful.
This is a doctor who got 10 years. It's just like, you know, there's stuff like that where it's like, damn, gee, there's a lot of kids that are just ruined, just wrecked. So that being said, the answer to your question is I'm trying to spend as much time with them as possible. Yeah. One thing that I think I'm doing a really good job with that I've kept from my initial commitment is to not be on the phone when I'm around them, not be looking at my phone obsessively. You know, in my first post back, I think I posted, or at least I mentioned, you know, when I went to prison, the day that I put my phone in the car and never came back, I looked at my screen time out of curiosity, I guess. I must have had certainly some sort of premonition and I had used over 8 hours a day of screen time on average for the month.
Wow.
Now I do a lot of business on my phone, Ron. It's not like I'm on there just scrolling, looking at butts all day or something, you know.
That's me.
Although maybe I look at butts a little bit, but not all day. And so that, like, when I looked at that, I was like, man, that is not healthy. Yeah. And so when I've come out, I've made a real effort not to do that, not to be obsessed with my phone. And when I'm with my children, I do not look at the phone. I put it away and I realize it'll be okay. You know, things can hold on. I have such an obsessive nature that I always feel like everything's urgent. Everything I need to do is urgent. Everything I need other people to do here is urgent. Everything is urgent. There's a rush.
Yep.
And I need to chill the fuck out and realize it's going to be okay. I was gone for 11 months. Everybody survived. Yeah. So like, if I'm gone for a few hours playing with my kids, that's okay. Yeah. So that I think that, you know, the things that I'm doing to make up is I am certainly focusing more on business, but I'm also focusing more on family. You know, when I'm not at work doing this, I'm not obsessing about it like I have in the past.
All right. Well, I said the last question, but now this will be the last one. I promise. Would you say the whole experience just gives you a greater appreciation? Like, just like we said, you can't really know what prison's like until you've been in prison. Can you really appreciate the freedom and everything that you have every day, unless it's been taken away from you at some point? No, they say you can't, unless you've experienced the darkness, you can't truly appreciate the light. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in that now. There is a lot of things in my life, even little things. I mean, Ron, you know, I lived in 3 square feet in my jail cell. I have 3 square feet of, you know, places to put my possessions. Wow. Now I have a big old house and a huge closet and all this, but really what it comes back to is that's really all I needed. So when people say, oh, I want this, you got to remember it's a want. You don't need anything. Mm-hmm. You need very little. And I experienced living on very little and being okay, you know? And I think that's important, but appreciating the little stuff, like for bodybuilders, right? Getting protein powder, we can't get it, you know, going to the ability to wake up at night and go to the kitchen and get a drink, or to go get, you know, go have a refrigerator at all. Yeah. You know, these are the things that people just don't even think of. For me, I lived at the end of a hallway in the dorm. So when I wake up to take a piss in the middle of the night, I had to walk, you know, 100 yards to the bathroom, and the bathroom's fully lit, you know, and then you go back and 100 yards back to the bed. It's those things that you don't even consider. You know, waiting in line for every meal. Anytime you want to go to the chow hall, there's a long ass line and you're going to be waiting in line for 20, 30 minutes to get your food every single time you eat. I mean, there's a lot of things like that. You get talked to by the COs. Fortunately for me in Pensacola, and probably some of them are watching, there were some very nice COs who knew REDCON, who knew me, who were very, very cool, respectful and relatively friendly as they could be. But there was also some really bad ones. That were extremely demeaning, that seemed to hate their lives, hate their jobs, and hate me, and for no reason. And being talked to like that, you know, going from being the boss essentially to being a subhuman inmate, it teaches you a lot. You know, you could also look at that, like we talked about in the beginning, and say how unfair that is and how much bullshit it is, and you can't believe you're treated like this. But to me, it was a really humbling experience. And it teaches you, like, look, man, you know, things could switch in an instant. You have to appreciate life, appreciate the things you have, and the things that you think may mean a lot may not mean that much.
And that's the stuff, man. That's the stuff that I a little bit of the things that I learned.
Sure. All right. Well, I cannot wait to read the book. Again, it's called REDCON Rising and Falling and Rising Again by Aaron Singerman. Available on Amazon. Will that be the main platform?
Everywhere. It's available right now for pre-order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Walmart. It'll be at every bookstore nationwide the 25th of April.
Cool. Well, it was great to see you at the Olympia. Great to see you back out and about with your family.
Thanks, Ron.
Getting the company back on the track that you want it to be on, and exciting things ahead. I'm very
thank you, buddy. Yes, for sure.
Great year for you coming up. So thank you for your time, Aaron. I know you've got to be super busy now catching up on business affairs. So very much appreciate you taking the time to do this with me.
Of course, brother. Thank you.
All right, guys. So check him out on Instagram at Aaron Singerman. You can get updates on every little thing there, and of course the REDCON1. The REDCON1 has their own YouTube channel and Instagram to follow. Check all that out for info on products and all that good stuff. But thanks, everyone. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video. Go ahead and leave comments. I know you're going to anyway. I love the feedback. Leave them in there. I promise I'll read them all and respond to some of them. So thank you so much, Aaron. And thanks, everyone, for watching Ronline Report with this man, Aaron Singerman. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ron.
Hey, did you like that video? Smash that like button, subscribe to MD, and please comment down below. Thanks for watching.